In the 4th century, Augustine wrote in his famous autobiographical work Confessions how he would often witness Ambrose, the Bishop of Milan, reading in silence. He writes,
"When he read, his eyes ran over the page and his heart perceived the sense, but his voice and tongue were still. Often, when we came to visit him, we found him reading in this way, always silently, for he never read aloud. We would sit quietly, for who would dare interrupt a man so intent? And when he had spare moments, which he rarely had, he was refreshing his mind with reading. I have no doubt that he did this to save his voice, which was easily worn out, and to keep his mind free from distraction. For if he read aloud, someone might wish to hear him or ask questions about what he was reading, and so he avoided being interrupted."
While the practice is quite common today, in late antiquity it was not. When people read, it was aloud or semi-aloud. Prayers also were done aloud. And this gives us context to Paul's concern some 3 centuries earlier in 1 Corinthians 14 when he indicates that gatherings were often chaotic with the amount of prayers being made. People speaking over one another, some singing, others praying. Vocalization was a part of religious worship. Except for women, Paul never orders the church to be silent, but admonishes them to practice order. And while we tend to romanticize Paul's advice as something that's always derived from spiritual influence, in 1 Corinthians 14, we see practical guidance on how to conduct a church service. So that, for example, if a man must prophesy, he is told to do so at most 3 times, so he doesn't dominate the service. It is also expected that men believing themselves to be prophets speak one after another because, as Paul notes, God is not the author of confusion in the church, but peace. And those who feel they must burst out with a sudden utterance while another has the floor, Paul reminds them, the prophet's spirit is subject to the prophet. In other words, a man has control over his behavior and should practice restraint.